And joining us right now on the Rothman Orthopedics guest line, two-time World Series appearance maker, one-time World Series champion with the 08 Phillies, and a man that never surrendered a postseason home run. That's pretty incredible. Excuse me, a World Series home run, which is a pretty big deal. Mr. Scott Eyre joins us right now. What's going on, Scott Eyre?
Not much. How you guys doing, man? I'm doing well.
Good. I got to tell you this. I got to start out. I met you 12 years ago. No. This is good. Don't you worry. I met you 12 years ago when I was working at WIP, and you would come in after the Phillies won the World Series in 08. And I walked away from having a brief conversation with you and listening to an interview with you like, this guy is the poster boy for the lefty out of the bullpen. Fun, little quirky, but entertaining as all get out. And damn, are you knowledgeable. You spoke so eloquently about the game, about the team, about the future of the team, and the odds of getting back to a World Series, which you guys did the following year in 09. So when I saw that my man booked this interview for us, I was really excited to talk to you. And here I am interviewing Scott Eyre again. When you think back on your time with the Philadelphia Phillies, which you spent 2 seasons with, posting a 1.62 ERA, what jumps out to you other than just the World Series, of course?
Teammates. It was a team that was, when I got there in 08, the first year, and like my first week there, I could see how close everybody was. There was so much ribbing and razzing going on, and no one took it personally. It was fun. They ribbed right back. They did this, that. You know, at certain times of the day, like the radio just got clicked off. It didn't matter who walked over and turned it off. Could have been So Taguchi or Jimmy, but the radio got turned off at a certain time. You know, like that was game time. There's time to focus on the game. No more music, and everybody was on the same page. And also my first road trip, you know, Lidge came up to me, or Durbin, one of the two came up to me and said, "Hey, we're going to dinner on the road. Like as soon as we land." I'm like, "Oh, do I put my stuff away?" He goes, "No, we'll go out in our suits." And it was half the bullpen, or more than half the bullpen, few pitchers, Bruntlett was there, you know, Dauber might have been there. And it was sushi. We all went out for sushi and ate. Some people didn't eat sushi, but you want to know the secret sushi eater? Clay Condry.
Really?
The Texas boy himself loves sushi. I'll rat him out. But like as soon as I got there, and like I said, I was telling you off camera, I don't watch every game during the season, but everything I've heard this Phillies team say is the same types of things I heard back then. You know, they don't talk about each other. You know, Bryce Harper didn't mention anything about hitting his home run after he hit it. He just hit the biggest home run in his life. And he talked about Reese doing his job, or, you know, Wheeler doing his job, or Suarez coming in and doing a great job for 2 pitches. You know, like he talked about all that. I thought that was awesome. And that's kind of how the team I was on did. Chase didn't talk about his accolades, talk about everybody else's, you know, things like that. And that creates that winning atmosphere.
You mentioned just the atmosphere right there, but you talk about a guy like Dusty Baker, who you played for. I mean, you played for some great managers, and we'll get into it. Dusty Baker, Charlie Manuel, Felipe Alou. We'll get into those guys. Lou Piniella being another one. But everybody said to a man that Charlie Manuel was this great players manager, and now everyone to a man is saying that about Rob Thompson. How do you define a great players manager?
Usually when no one talks about him, really, because there's nothing said bad about him. I mean, let's face it, a lot of the nice comments don't ever get quoted in the paper the next day. It's the bad one. It's the one someone said something bad about. And I mean that in a good way. It's not a story if someone just loves their manager, because you're supposed to, right? Mm-hmm. But like, I think like in Rob's case, you know, he was with the players, and I'm the assistant coach on a varsity baseball team here in high school. It's the best job ever. I don't have to deal with parents. I love parents, but I don't have to deal with all the stuff that managers have to deal with. Rob, as the bench coach, or I want to say assistant coach, is like what I do. You get to be friends with the players. You don't have to be the disciplinarian, but I don't think he's a disciplinarian as a head coach, as a manager either. Now he's just the same old guy, which means they saw the fun side of him and they're seeing the manager side, and they're saying he's the same person. And like, I've only met him once, I think, maybe, but from what I see of him, he hasn't seemed like he's changed any from being a coach to manager. You know, now he just makes decisions. And I think he asks all his other coaches what they think too. So in my opinion, that makes you a good manager. If you're just doing it all on your own, it's more of an ego thing to me. He's willing to ask everybody for help. It sounds like, anyways.
Mm-hmm. How was Charlie Manuel like that? How was Dusty Baker like that?
Both the same. Both would walk through the locker room after a game. You know, Dusty had a toothpick in his mouth and wristbands on, full uni. Charlie the same. Charlie had his uniform off after most of the players. Most guys would be showered and already eaten, and Charlie's still walking around the locker room in his uniform because he wants to talk about the game. to you. Like there was a game I've talked about numerous times where I came in 09. It was against the Nationals, and I went right-hander walk, left-hander homer, right-hander walk, left-hander homer, right-hander walk. I walked 3 guys and gave 2 homers before they could get somebody loose, okay? It sucked. They gave up 4 runs, got them out of the game. Thank God Raul Ibanez hit a home run the next inning to put us back on top. We won. Nobody's asking me about it. You know who did? Charlie came over and talked to me about it. After most of the reporters were going, yeah, he came over and said, hey, so not a good day, huh? I go, oh, I've had better ones, Skip. You know, and the best part about it, if you look up the games, the next day I faced both lefties in the game. I wish I need to look it up one time so I know, but I don't know if we were up by 5 or 6 or down by 4 or 5, whatever it might have been. Who knows? But I went back in the next day, and there was no righty between them. And you put me back in the day to face both of them. I got them both out, both flyouts, I believe. But as I'm walking out the field, I'm thinking, dude, that's awesome. He gave me a shot to redeem myself, and it wasn't a high pressure. We weren't down by a run. We weren't up by a run. It wasn't tied. I know it was a either, you know, one way or the other game where we were winning or losing. So there's no pressure. And that to me makes a good manager too. Like, you know, there's some times in my career where I struggled and didn't get to pitch much at all because different managers are different people. You know, some guys believe, hey, I'm just going with the hot hand and that's all there is. And if you finally work your way back in after 3 months, go for it. But Charlie was wanting to get you back out the next day because, you know, if you're an integral part of the bullpen or a part of the lineup or something and you're 0 for 20, you know, it's going to take you out and put you in a spot where you can succeed. To me, that makes a good manager. But then as a player, you also have to do your job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that too helps, right?
Yeah, no, he's giving you the opportunity to make yourself viable and usable, but you got to do the job as well. And I think when the players have confidence that their manager has their back or has confidence in them, man, it takes a weight off you as a player because you're not worried about what your manager is thinking. Am I going to sit if I strike out? No, you're not, because he's already told you you're not going to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, you'd rather get you back out there with a chance where you're going to have success without that pressure, so that in the pressure situation, you can come back and have that success.
I mean, like look at Suarez. I gotta say it. Like, does it not look like he's always smiling?
Yes.
Watch the video. I'm telling you, there's 2 outs in the ninth, and his face is like this, or 1 out in the ninth, and he's like, he always looks like he's got a smile on his face, like he knows what's ahead of him if he does his job. It's kind of cool to watch, actually.
It shows you he's relaxed. He's calm. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think heck yeah.
Absolutely. So obviously the Phillies are facing Dusty Baker this time around, which is crazy. I mean, you were a member of the World Series team, the team that went to the World Series against the Anaheim Angels back in the day there in 2002. Dusty Baker was the manager there in San Francisco. It was a 7-game series. To this day, one of the best World Series I've ever seen. And now Dusty Baker, 20 years later, is managing this Astros team going up against the Phils. I mean, you mentioned the players manager thing. What else does Dusty Baker bring to the table here as a manager?
Knowledge, experience. Again, it's as a player, if you like your manager, or even if you don't like him, if you believe in him and listen to his stories, they all have stories. They've all been around a long time, you know, except for the young kids that are managers. But even when I had Dusty, he'd been around a long time. So, you know, these guys are going and he's telling them the same things he's probably told us. Hey, it's the same. It's Indiana Hoosiers line all over again. It's 10 feet, 15 feet to the, you know, Rob Nen told me that in the 2002 World Series, my first game warming up. He said, hey, man, it's still 60 feet, 6 inches. Breathe, kid.
That wasn't your first playoff experience. You had experience with the White Sox before?
No, I was not up. And when they made the playoffs in 2000, I think it was 2000 or the Mariners, 2001. Might have been. No, it was 2000 because I was gone.
Okay.
I didn't get called. I actually broke my hand in AAA on August 31st.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it's awesome. But my son was born a little while out, about 12 days after that. So things happen for a reason.
The balance, the balance of life. I do want to ask you, because this is insane. I was reading up on you. I was like, no way this story is true. Because I've always admired Lou Piniella, another great manager you played for. Is it true he thought your name was Stevie?
I don't know if he thought my name was Stevie, but he wasn't the best as a manager. He's awesome. Okay.
Okay.
Player, he was awesome. But I don't know if he knew everybody's name, especially relievers, you know, because he didn't deal with us much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he knows the position players. So, you know, I hadn't been pitching very well either. And I came into a game in the later innings against the Pirates. It was a little drizzly out, so it's not the best weather. I pitched, and normally, as you know, I was a couple batter pitcher, 1 inning, maybe 2. I threw 3 innings in relief. I did very well. I threw a pitch double switch for me to come in. I got my batters out, and by the time I was to come up to bat again, I come out of the game. I was probably tired anyways. But after the game, I'm sitting in my locker. I got ice on my shoulder, ice on my elbow, and I'm sitting in my locker, probably having a beer. And Dempster's next to me, and I think I forget, Woody was on the other side. Kerry Wood was over there, and someone was might have been Glennon Rush right over here too. And the TV's right above me, and Pinella's in the interview room, and he's in the interview and he's talking about the game. And someone says, what about the bullpen tonight or something like that? And I looked up and I'm like, just kind of curious to see if I'm going to get, something. And he said, he's tapping Peter. What's his? I forget his last name. He's our media guy, and he says, well, tonight, we had some good guys step up. He goes, the lefty, he goes, and he taps him. And I think Peter's about to tell him my real name. He goes, Stevie, Stevie Eyre. He really did that today. And I'm looking at the TV, and I'm like, oh boy. And I hear from behind me, I think it was Glendon. Hey, Stevie. And I'm like, that's it. I'm out of here. I took the ice off my shoulder, off my elbow. I put my clothes on and left before the media could even come in. Because I'm like, I'm not dealing with that. I pitched well. Let's just leave it at that. I'm trying to get back on track, trying to help this team win. We had a good year in 07, 08. We won the division. I mean, and this is 08 or 07. And I'm like, I'm home that night. And one of the reporters called me and I said, yeah, I can. I just was laughing so hard I had to leave. I'm not mad. And they're like, oh, really? I go, no, I'm not mad at all. It is what it is. I don't really care. He's
right.
Called Kerry Wood the wrong name that year or something. Not on it was, but so I actually sent a message to the Rawlings guy that night or the next day, and I said, hey man, can you order me a glove? And I need a new glove, and I want you to put this name on it. He's like, what? Why do you want that? I go, and I told him the whole story, and so I get the glove like 2 weeks later, right? And I told Bob Brenly, who was our announcer, I go, hey, if I get whenever I get in my next game, I said, you might want to lock in on my my glove. I had one specially made. So it's actually, I still use it. It's my outfit. I take it to high school practice every day because I throw BP with it, or I play catch with the kids with it. It's a great glove.
Oh, that's awesome.
I only pitched a couple games with it, so it's kind of funny. They asked me about it for a long time, and finally, I think Lou actually later on during the summer came up and said something about it. I was like, I don't even care, man. Skip, it is what it is. I don't really care. I'm pitching better now. It's all that matters. We're helping. We're winning games. It don't matter. I think I actually said to somebody, it's gonna be a funny story someday. And when I tell people about it now, they're like, what? And I show them the glove. They're like, oh my gosh,
that's amazing.
Whatever it was, it got me pitching again. He got me into some games, and then then I eventually got traded. But it got me back in his sights. It was on his mind again. Which when he was a manager, like I said, he's a good manager. He ran the team. He just wasn't the best with names.
Understood. Now, speaking about that balance, I want to talk about you coming to Philadelphia in 2008 because I believe in Chicago, Kerry Wood got healthy, gets added back on the roster. They designate you for assignment, and then a couple of days later, it seems like you wind up with the Phillies, and the Phillies have a much-needed lefty out of the bullpen. The bullpen had been great. Brad Lidge had been perfect all year. That whole thing, the story.
Durbin, Condrey, they're all awesome. But we had packed up our stuff in Chicago. My agent said, they're going to try to trade you. It's August deadline passed, so I could go somewhere and still play in the postseason or whatnot. And he said, I'm in the RV. I'm in my RV. I'm driving. We're about in Valdosta, Georgia. And I'm not joking. You can't write this up. The front cab AC had gone out, and it's hot in Georgia. This was, this is August 1st or 2nd or something like that. It's hot. And I'm driving home in there in the front cab AC. The back AC is working in the back. So my 2 kids are warm. My wife's are cool back there. My dogs are in the back. My wife's in the car in front of us driving because we're, going home. And my son is holding up a clipboard like over the vent that's in the back, like behind me, trying to get it to blow air on me because I had no shirt on. I'm driving my RV. I look straight like Clark Griswold, and it's hot as heck. Finally, my phone rings, and I'm like, we got to stop in here. So I pull over, and I say, hey, I'll call you right back. And I pull over and call my agent back, and I said, hey, what's going on? He goes, well, I got news for you. He said, I'm going to tell you to take this offer because a team wants to trade for you, and they're on your no-trade list. Any team in the Northeast, and don't take wrong, Philadelphia, the Yankees, Mets, Orioles, any team that was way up north like that, I didn't want to go play for because the thought of if I got traded, it would be for a postseason thing. It would be like, to go somewhere like that. And I didn't think it was because I was going to be getting designated, but that's what happened, So most of it is I'm not a big city. I love Philly, but I could never live there.
Okay.
It's big for me. Like I said, I live in Columbus, North Carolina. It's nice and small, and it's just, I like that. So we're driving, and he says, the Phillies are going to try to trade for it. And I said, okay. He's like, well, is that a yes? I go, yeah, I'll go anywhere right now. I wasn't pitching well in Chicago, and it wasn't the best fit. And sometimes that happens. I have no qualms. I have no regrets of signing in Chicago or anything that happened. It is life is what it is. It happens, and move on and try to make the best of what you get. And I said, if Philly needs a lefty right now, I'm more than excited. And I looked on the roster right after he called me, and I'm looking up, and as he calls me, my phone rings, and it's, oh my God, McPhail. I'm like, I don't know the number. It just says Philly. And I'm like, hello? It's like, yeah, this was Andy then. Yeah. Right.
Pat,
yeah.
Not Pat Gillick.
No, I'm sorry. It was Pat, not
Pat
Andy.
Gillick. Yeah.
It was Pat. And I'm like, hey, how you doing? He's like, I just got off the phone with Tommy. And he says, you're going to waive it. And I said, I'm excited to go anywhere, sir. I just want to pitch. And that's exactly, that's all I said to him. I was like, I just want to pitch. And he's like, when him and Tommy Tanza were friends, and he's like, I know Tommy, I'll call him right now. He said, when's the fastest you could get to Philly? And I said, well, I'm in Valdosta, Georgia right now in my RV, driving my dogs home. And he started laughing on the phone. And then my wife's in front of me in the car, and she's like, what's going on? I'm like, hold on, I got to talk. So I get off the phone. I'm like, I could be home, and I'm going to be home in 6 or 8 hours. I can leave tomorrow morning if you really need me to. So we drove the rest of the way home from Georgia, parked the RV in the front driveway, had to unpack it because then I had to go park it in the storage unit because she doesn't park it. So I had to go park it there, and I spent half the day unpacking it, and then that night packing stuff to go to Philly. And I already had like a 10-day bag packed because I had just gone on a road trip in Chicago. So that didn't even get touched. Suits, clothes for the road were 10 days, like right there it is, go. I'm good. All I had to pack was the rest, winter clothes because it's cold up there, stuff like that. And then I got on a plane the next morning and went to Philly.
Wow.
I got there that night.
Wow. And of course, that story doesn't end any better than the World Series title in 08. But on the walk-up, first off, what had you heard about Philadelphia to that point? How much time, other than playing here, have you spent in Philadelphia to that point? And what was your, I guess, welcome to Philly moment?
Welcome. Well, let's see. So I did spend other time there. I was there the first year it opened when it was 04. I think 04, 05.
Yeah, 04.
So they were throwing stink bombs in our bullpen, so that wasn't fun. Actually, I got hit in the side of the head. Right here, right above where the bill meets the top of your hat, I got hit with a cracked open because so that sulfur smell, right? So I'm warming up, and I literally am warming up, going. Oh. So I walk over and take my hat and dunk water all over it, hoping it's going to go away, and I put it back on. I take a towel and kind of try to dry it a little bit. And oh my God, I can still smell it. I go running into the game, and I get to the mound, and Felipe Alou goes, "What's that smell?" And I tried to tell him, and he's like, "Oh," and he just walked away. He goes, "Let's go get him out." I'm like, "Oh my God." Yeah. So that was one of the first few times I was there when Millwood threw the no-hitter.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was in the bullpen for that. Jesse Foppert I think that was Jesse Foppert's first big league start for the Giants.
Oh, wow.
He had some experience at reliever. That was our first home run in the first inning, Bobby Abreu. Keep your tickets, as Dan Plesac says. Today might be special. Keep your tickets. Sure enough, it was.
Wow.
But I think my welcome to Philly moment was.
It's going to be hard to outdo that stink bomb. I'm going to tell you that now.
Like welcome to Philly as a Philly moment had to be our first road trip. I think I got a win on one of my first few games, and I only threw like 2 pitches. I think it was in Philly, actually. In Philly, I think it was against the Pirates. It was my first or second game. I threw 2 or 3 pitches, cold pitch. I don't remember. Whoever started through 6, 7 innings, I threw 2 pitches, and we came back and went ahead, and I got a W. And I remember the media all in front of my locker, and I'm like, and my comment was, "I just threw 2 pitches. Why are you all here?" Not knowing, also being the new guy.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, it was just one of those kind of moments. And I realized the next day walking around the Deptford Mall, because I was staying at the Residence Inn right there in Deptford. They were so nice to us there, by the way. Not throwing a shout out to them, I guess, but There was a Pizzeria Do or Uno right next to that.
Okay.
I ate there quite a bit. Like went over after some day games and had some, because I wasn't driving anywhere in that crazy city. Went to my Hotel Field Mall, So I went to the mall the next day and I got recognized by a bunch of people. And I'm like, I almost had to leave, like little old me. Like I almost had to leave the mall because I just wanted some Panda Express. And I went into Modell's, I think. Modell's to buy a couple Philly t-shirts for my kids. So when they got into town, they had shirts. And I was standing in the store and I'm like, people started asking autographs. I'm like, oh, I gotta go. I'm one of those guys. I'm like, oh, I gotta go. I'll see you guys later.
My man's just trying to have some General So's. And all of a sudden, right? Autographs. Come on now. No, but it's funny. Philly is that city that recognizes the guy that normally wouldn't get recognized.
Like I go back now, and like you said, I played there in 2008 and 9. That's 13 years ago. I'm a lot bigger than I was back, a little heavier now. Like me and Myers both. Yeah. But I still, like, as soon as I walk around, you walk around the concourse in Philly, I wouldn't recognize. I grew up a Dodger fan. I wouldn't recognize Dodger players, but I still get recognized. And that is to me is like an aha moment in Philly. Like they do love their sports. They love their people. They don't just watch the game. They get to actually know the players, good or bad for that matter. Mm-hmm. They get to know their players, and especially in Philly. I am going to send a shout out to my boy at the relief room. I don't know if you ever heard about this guy. It's my buddy Matt. He's got at the relief room on Twitter, right? Okay. He has a bathroom dedicated to Phillies relievers. It is legit. It is awesome. I'm telling you right now. Imagine an entire bathroom, wall to wall to wall, above the sink. There, the toilet sink is a red Philly thing that I signed. Brilliant. I've actually been there to visit him. Yeah, we kind of started talking on Twitter and to tell the story. But yeah, I had to throw him out there. You asked me earlier about throwing something. I'm like, yeah, my boy. They just did a story on him on 3 NBC Philly or something like that, I believe.
NBC 10 or whatever. Okay.
I don't know.
Or maybe it was CBS. I don't know. CBS 3.
CBS. Yeah, he just did a story at his house, and he's got a bunch. He's been he knows everything about all Philly relievers. And,
I'm in. And
Tom Hume's his favorite. And Hilgendorf. Can never say his man's name.
All right. I'll have to look him up. I'll have to look him up.
Yeah, you'll see it. But
okay. Well, let me ask you. So in 08, you come to this team, and obviously they've been playing some great baseball. Was there a moment in that year with your time in Philly that you kind of knew that things were going to come together? This team really had a shot to win the World Series?
Yeah, like the first week I was there. We went on my first week there, and then we went on a road trip. And I think if you look it up, it was a historically bad road trip to LA and San Diego. Like we sucked.
Okay.
Then we came home and we went on a tear. We beat the Mets like 3 out of 4 or swept them or something like that. And then we beat the Nationals, who they seemed to never beat, I guess, back in the day. And then after beginning of September, after about 3 weeks there, I guess I was thinking, man, this team's pretty good. We're just going to keep winning games. I mean, Cole's getting better, and you got Blanton, who got dealt there a little before me in June or July that year, and he started heating up in that last, right after I got there, and thinking, whoa, we're pretty good. We got a chance. And then the Mets started losing some games, and I thought we got a pretty good chance. I thought when we beat the Nationals on the second to last day of the season to clinch the playoffs, we got a pretty good shot. I've been in the playoffs before. I've been through a couple rounds different times, and we got a pretty good chance. You can have a team, and no disrespect to the Dodgers, you can have a Dodgers team that beats the crap out of everybody all year long. The playoffs are different, and I'm not saying that they can't win a playoff series. I'm just saying the playoffs are different, and we had a team at that time that had 3 to 4 starters that were just on fire, and you need that in the postseason. It's hard to do with 1 or 2 big guys in the front and an offense, because you're not, like I think John Smoltz said on TV, you're not facing the 3 or 4 starters in the world in the playoffs. In a 5-game series, you're not facing the 3 or 4. In the 7-game, you're not facing the 3, 4, 5 starters. The 5 starters aren't on the roster half the time,
right?
Very rarely, or in bullpen for long relief. But you got a team, and we had 3 big starters, 4 really. Even Kyle Kendrick, I think, got left off the roster, and he had 10 wins that year. Mm-hmm. So yeah. And it's not like he couldn't do the job. It's almost like we have enough. That's kind of crazy.
So you guys win the World Series. It's pandemonium in Philadelphia. People are losing their minds. You guys have a historic day. And I'll tell you this, and my audience knows this, I was like 8 months old when the Sixers won the championship in '83. Okay. So the World Series parade from you guys was the first like wild experience
First ever for you.
It was, and we'll live in infamy. I was at the Eagles parade, and that was incredible. But your first one, you never forget. What do you remember from that day?
My mouth hurt right here from smiling for 5 hours like this. Permanent, like crow's feet, your jaw. I really did. I got home back to the hotel that night. I'm like, babe, my mouth hurts. My jaw hurts. All I remember is, for me personally, like obviously you remember like everywhere you look down this street and you go up to the next street and down that street, all you saw was red all the way, just red, just coolness. I got some pictures somewhere.
Oh, wow.
But for me personally, I got to spend the World Series parade float with my wife and kids on the boat.
Oh,
like
man.
Clinton and his wife. And then I had both my boys who I got pictures up there, and they were 9 and 11. So they got to fill we had on our float, we had our bus or whatever you want to call it. We had a confetti shooter. My kids were filling that thing up for an hour, and they're loving it. They're looking around once in a while, and then they're on their video games probably a little bit here and there. But for me, like personally, it was I was getting ready to retire. Maybe there was thoughts of it wasn't going to play in 09. I thought, man, 08, I got close to 10 years. I could stay home with the wife and kids, as any baseball player will tell you, when you're done playing and, your wife is ready for you to be home, you should probably just go home. So, we talked about it, and then I went back for 09, but, and then after we lost in 09, my kids said they'd rather have me home than play anymore. So like getting to spend those moments like that with them that's pretty cool for me. But as a team thing, man, when we walked around the Eagle Stadium, that was ridiculous. I understand that Citizens Bank was packed and flooded with people, but to fill up the entire football stadium as well, that's just ludicrous, man. Like, I don't know what it's like in other cities. I never won one in another city, but I'd say the Phillies, the amount of people that were there or up on, like, man, when you're watching the playoff game like last week and you see the city, whoever it is, greasing poles down Broad Street in case of something, like, what is going on? Is that in the budget to grease poles?
Crisco, endless budget in Philadelphia. If we need Crisco, we go out and get it.
What are they greasing it with? I want to know. Like, I hope not oil. That's expensive right now.
Little bet. You mentioned the confetti shooter. Now, I have heard from some people, two things I've heard, and you can confirm or deny, but maybe it was an oversight. Confetti shooter, great idea. Was there a bathroom on that float?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I heard there was a line of you players once you got to CBP.
Yeah, it was people running off of buses, running off. Like, I remember, one guy threw me up a beer, and I looked at it and I go, seriously? And I don't even remember what kind it was. And some other guy threw me another one. I threw that one back to the guy and drank this one. And it was, oh man, because they told us they didn't want us to have beer on the floats. Well, that didn't stop Myers. He brought it. By the time we finished the float, at one point, I think Burrow was sitting on top of he was on a fire engine, I think, or something like that.
I think he was on the. I thought he was on the. Well, he might have been at one point, but I remember when I saw him, he was on the Budweiser thing with the the Clydesdales, and Elvis the dog. Rest in peace.
Oh, rest in peace. That dog was awesome. I got to see that dog a few times, actually. I'm a dog person. We have 5 dogs. We just got a puppy.
Oh wow, okay.
Well, we had 4. At one point we had 6 dogs, 5 cats, 2 horses, and a bearded dragon. When my youngest son went to college, we got rid of his bearded dragon. We found a home for it.
Okay.
Found a lady, and her daughter was like 5, and she's like, "Oh my God!" She was so excited. And then, you lose dogs over time and this and that. So we had lost a collie that we got actually the year I retired.
Okay.
She was an amazing dog, and we put her down about 4 months ago now, maybe, and she waited a whole 10 days to start looking at other dogs. So we ended up getting another. We have 3. They're basically pitty mixes: a Staffordshire Pit Bull Terrier mix type of dogs.
Okay.
And then we have a Siberian Husky.
Ooh, cool.
We have a little some type of cattle mix. The collie was the only dog we've ever had that was a purebred.
Okay.
She was a purebred. She looked just like Lassie, same brown and white color. She was a wonderful dog. She's still missed. But once in a while, I look around, I'm like, man, I wish Maggie was here. Keep these dogs in line.
Oh man,
it's awesome. But the new puppy we have, so I don't even remember what we were talking about. Now.
We were talking about Elvis.
Oh yeah, his dog Elvis. Like I remember his dog Elvis was like, I was in that. He had him in the laundry room. Like some days we were on getaway days because he was one of the clubhouse guys would take him to the kennel where he was gonna stay at. Like probably a pretty nice one if I know Pat. Or he had someone just watch the dog. But I'd sit in that room and that dog smelled. He's a big dog, and the bigger, and he's like, you're rubbing him, you're getting all petting all over, and then you go out and you're in the bullpen going, why do I? Oh, Elvis got me again. I'm gonna go wash my hands. But yeah, he was a good dog, man.
That's great. That's great. I now again on the confirm or deny thing, you mentioned Brett Myers a couple of times. I have spoken to Brad Lidge. I've spoken to Brett Myers. I spoke to Mrs. Utley, the lovely Jen Utley, about different accounts of the night you guys won the World Series. Brad Lidge told me about the first time you guys had heard Harry Callis's call, and the 2008 Philadelphia Phillies are world champions of baseball. I've heard after that party, Jen Utley and Chase Utley had to clean up their own dog's poop because they just got a puppy, and when they went back after the party, they had to clean up the poop from the puppy. I had heard from Brett Myers that some of you guys got transported by Philadelphia's finest to pick up beer, to make a beer run.
That was Brett. Yeah, they went on a beer run, and it I think everything was closed.
Right.
Like
yes.
It was open. So I think he said they went out and they found some cops and said, hey, we need you to help us get alcohol. I believe they went to a bar, and the bar's not supposed to sell, but I think the police said, go ahead or whatever. Knowing Brett, but I know we were at Burrow's house downtown. Mm-hmm. And it took us, oh my God, it took us 40 minutes to get to the party. I think my mom and my kids went home in a town car or some type of, maybe, I don't even remember, but we drove in a cab to a certain point, and then we just had to get out and start walking. And I remember people saying, you should just walk real fast, don't get stuck by anybody, because people will again, the recognition thing. So as we're going down, we're supposed to turn left at this street here and going to Burrow's place. Yeah. And I'm trying to figure out why are people destroying trees? They're pulling those trees, they're in the 4x4 little dirt patch that's on the concrete, and they're pulling trees out of the ground. Why? Because we won? Why are you pulling a tree out? Why are things getting lit on fire? Because people won. I will never understand that. But I walked by this guy, and they're almost got this tree out, and I looked at him, and he goes, Scott Eyre, and I go, keep pulling. He just said, I said something like, keep pulling or something like that. And we went in the house, and we got in the house, and I think they were basically out of alcohol in 20 minutes.
Oh my God. Come on, Pat Burrell. Where's your supply?
I don't know what happened. I think someone else was supposed to go get it, or, obviously they didn't know we were going to win. But you should have bought it anyways. We would have won 6 or 7. So,
I just like the idea of you walking by all these people that are just taking.
God, crazy.
They're celebrating with landscaping. That's what. That's
like you're pulling a tree out of the ground. Why? I remember trying to leave the ballpark after the game, in my car with my wife and kids in it. People are whacking on my thing. I'm thinking, oh, my car! Stop! I like my car. Someone's gonna whack and put a dent on it. But there, and then finally I rolled the window down and just yelled, "Let's go Philly" or something like that, and I drove away.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God!
Craziness.
In that time, since then, you guys go to another World Series. Unfortunately, not the best result, losing the Yankees in 2009. But since that time, John Middleton has become this, larger than life owner here in Philadelphia, and we kind of had a face of ownership with David Montgomery and Bill Giles, the late great David Montgomery, and John Middleton has kind of emerged as this big figure of ownership, the face of ownership as the managing partner there, with the Buck cousins. Yeah. There's a story in 2009 about him going into the locker room and saying he wanted his bleeping trophy back. I'm curious if you had any interaction with John Middleton while you were here in Philadelphia for those 2 seasons.
No, not really. I don't remember meeting him until he had the alumni back in 18 for the 10-year.
Okay.
We had the big party at his house. Holy mackerel. His downstairs basement is the Philly stuff he has down there. Unbelievable. Baseballs he has signed by guys or the books, different, what do you call it, programs. Oh my God, some of the stuff. He has Philly legendary stuff down there, first of all. And that's the only really time I got to meet him. And he was the super nicest guy you'd ever meet. And he loved Philly. He wanted to bring a championship back under his leadership, under his his ownership. And he talked about that he gave a little speech and told everybody, thanks for coming out. By the way, he spent a lot of money and told us, thanks for coming out. That's craziness to me.
Wow.
But he talked about, we will bring a championship back to this city. I promise you that. So, he's done the right things and said the right things to people. And seems like the type of owner that obviously you saw. I saw a video of him in the middle of a bunch of people pouring champagne on him. That's the type of owner I think everyone should get a chance to play for, and that are involved and part of it. Like you saw Mr. Montgomery. Mr. Montgomery was awesome. Like when we won the World Series, like we got our rings and they're beautiful and they're huge. And like, wow. But then they got wife or spouses also this little thing that if you were to take the ring and just pop the top off it, they got our wives like little pendants that are the exact same thing. Just the top. It's almost like if you took the ring and just pop the top off.
Oh my God.
Pendant.
That's awesome.
He didn't give it to anybody to give to them though. He made sure, like he waited when Laura was in town, my wife, he said, I got this message, say, hey, I got to take you up to see Mr. Montgomery. Wants to give you something. Like, oh, okay. I had no idea what he was giving. And then we got up there and he had this for Laura. And I'm like, oh, wow.
Oh, that's incredible.
Oh yeah. He didn't give it to somebody else to do. He was that guy that was hands-on by himself. But then you take Middleton's the next level up. Like he's not a Jerry Jones type, but he's that guy. I don't know if I would have seen Mr. Montgomery or Mr. Giles in the locker room getting champagne poured in the rooms. But like, and that's nothing wrong with that. Like, but I mean, that's the type of guy he is. He is that passionate about it that he wants to be in the middle of it with like, hey, get me guys, go ahead.
That's great. And I never heard that story before though about David Montgomery. About the gift he gave for the wives. That's awesome.
Wives are significant others. I think some guys chose, if you had a girlfriend that was maybe a certain type, you said, no, I'm not getting one. And I think the Phillies did that though. I think it had to be a wife. But I think like at that time, I don't think like we had one or two players that weren't married, but were getting married to that person who then they gave it to him as well.
Okay. I think Pat Burrell was married at the time, so he didn't. No, that saved David Montgomery a bunch of money, I'm sure.
Yeah, he probably gave him a couple.
All right, now when it comes to this team, this Phillies team right now, I have to ask you the $1 million question here. Do you think this Phillies team has what it takes to win the World Series against your man Dusty Baker and the Houston Astros?
Mighty Astros. I really do, yeah, because like I said, anything can happen. Like you take, I know everybody, some people are complaining, oh, well, the 11th best team in the big leagues is in the World Series. Who cares? They made the playoffs. That's the format. Deal with it. Like they say, oh, this team won 104 games. This team won 101 games. Who cares? They lost. Like that Phillies are hot right now. The Astros are just good. Can they beat them? Yeah, I believe they can. But I don't know if you're going to see 10 to 11 games. I'm hoping personally for 5, 6, 7 games, at least 6 or 7, because I'm a fan of baseball and I don't want it to end. But like you said, the Giants World Series that year with the Angels, we had a lot of one-run games, a lot of close games. It's fun to watch that kind of baseball. I know it drives people crazy. Philly fans want every game to be 10-0, but that's no fun. Honestly, as a player, I can't say it's no fun. I shouldn't say that because it probably would be much more relaxing. But is that really what you want to see out of a World Series as a fan? Right. I don't. I want to see close games. I want to see managerial moves because you get to hear them criticize or critique 5,000 ways from Sunday, because that's all there's going on right now. Every move is, criticized or admired or, looked upon in certain ways. But that's what you play the entire season for is these 7 games, the next 4 wins. They should make a shirt that says first to 4 wins.
Maybe hey, there you go. There's a business for you. Scott Ayre's printing T-shirts, printing money, baby.
I just want to say Phillies win in 5.
There we see.
That would be the same as 08. So,
Well,
how many games it win in 80? Was it 5? Was 86 games?
No, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. But here's one thing I do know. In 08, you guys won. You guys, I think, won the first game of every series, lost the second, and then took the rest.
Yeah,
and that's what this Phillies team has done to this point, with the exception of the 2-game series or the 3-game series against the Cardinals. They won both games. Yeah,
they did. You're right. Actually, they lost and won the first and won. Yeah, because we won the first in Tampa, then lost. Yep, I see. Where are you going with it? I like it.
Hey, as Rocky would say, it's a good omen. It's a good omen. It's a good omen. So last thing for you, Scott, and you've been so generous with your time, and I really appreciate it. It's been a blast talking to you again, man. Yeah.
Oh, I looked you up on Twitter. I saw you're a big fan of a bunch of movies I like. So, Anchorman. I saw some Austin Powers quotes in there. It's science. And what is the other one? By what is it? By Odin's.
Sweet Odin's Raven.
Odin's beard. There it is. Yeah. I love those movies. I'm a movie guy.
Okay. All right. Good enough.
Oh my God.
Good enough.
And Anchorman, I wish they wouldn't have made a second one, but there's still some funny quotes in it.
I described Anchorman 2 as, there weren't a lot of hits, but all the hits were home runs.
Yes.
That's the way I described it. That's the way I described it. And I say that to everybody, not just baseball people. That's just how I think. Let me ask you this last thing for you, Scott Eyre. You mentioned the World Series, of course. You mentioned your teammates playing in Philadelphia. I've heard from a lot of ex-athletes that Philadelphia isn't for everybody. How did you take to Philadelphia?
I took advice from John Lieber, who was my Cubs teammate when I got claimed and traded to Philly. Sure. I asked him what it was like. I said, "What's Philly like?" He goes, "They're going to love you or they're going to hate you. There's not a lot in between." He said, "If you stand there after a crappy game and don't make any excuses, just say I sucked, they're going to love you." He said, "If you stand there after you do well and say, I'm glad everyone else," he goes, "It's a blue collar town, plain and simple, Scotty." That was also, I think I remember that exactly. It was a blue collar town, simple, Scotty. Just be yourself. He goes, "You talk to everybody, you talk a lot, you're open, I speak my mind. Sometimes I should shut up, and I know that. But I'm not critical. I'm just real. I try to be real." And he said that they're going to love that out of you. And they did. I tried to be the same as me as I always was, and never tried to change, never tried to come in. And I was not hey, look at me, I'm the stud reliever. No, I was just Scott, the pitcher. And I, more like if you see him, you look at my Twitter page, I had someone give me a great compliment. I think it said on my Twitter thing, it says, the first 3 things I put are dad, husband, pitching coach. And then at the back end, it says ex-major league pitcher. Like all the other stuff is first. And that's kind of how I tried to do it. I think when I was young, I went around telling everybody I played in the big leagues. I tried to be like, I wanted to be famous or whatever. And then when I got to realize, like, just be yourself. That's, what my mom taught me, what my grandmother taught me, what my friends have all tried to instill in me when I was a person. And I just tried to be the same. And I think Philly took that to mean I know exactly what you guys are like. I know exactly what you guys are going through.
Yeah, we're kind of open about that. We're not really shy with our feelings.
Yeah, and I wasn't either. I'm not either. There's, like I said, the one day I told you a story about the Nationals game where I got booed, and when I talked to people after the game, I said, "Well, I just sucked today, and hopefully tomorrow's a better day." And I think actually the words "I sucked today" were in the paper, which is fine by me because I did suck that day. But then again, the next day you get to go out and and I said what I said the next day, like, "Hey, Charlie gave me a shot. I succeeded. We won the game. Let's go tomorrow now." So that was kind of the theme.
That's awesome. Scott, you've been so generous with your time. I really appreciate it. I could just make up another question. And I think you would beat Brett Meyer's time for longest interview on this show, which I think was 43 minutes. And I believe we're at like almost 43 minutes right now.
Yeah, let's go for it. Screw
Brett. All right. So
I don't have practice till 3:30. I'm good. Takes about 20 minutes to get there.
Okay. Oh, look at this. Okay, great. All right. When you think of Brett Myers, what comes to mind?
Loud.
But what do you think? Okay. All right. Go ahead.
But as soon as you say loud, I would have to say as a pitcher, very determined, aggressive. Like I will pump my chest out and beat you, or I will tip my hat because you beat me, and then I'll hate you.
that sounds like the guys I've spoken to a couple times. And then finally, why was Brad Lidge perfect that year?
Stars were aligned.
All
I don't know what else to say. Like when I got there, I didn't see the whole year. So I didn't see the first few months. I heard there was one time where I think someone saved him one time.
Victorino throw from center. Yeah.
Yeah. But other than that, I saw a nasty pitcher. Like besides the slider that went straight down and I don't even know what you call that pitch. He spotted his fastball, in and out for fast strikes. And a lot of that, I will say this one, Chooch.
Oh yeah. Sure.
We all got to say Chooch. When I got there, he actually knew what I threw in certain situations. He said he asked me a couple questions and then watched some video on me. He's going to watch video on me coming into games? I don't think I ever shook him off once. I wasn't a big shaker. I trusted my catchers because if I'm coming in the 6th inning, they've already faced that hitter twice, maybe 3 times. They know how to get him out. I'm just going to listen. But he didn't know what I threw and that I like to throw 2-0 sliders or whatever, a 2-1 changeup to a lefty. I did on occasion, like lefties don't throw lefties changeup. And he knew that. He knew he's pretty good at what he did.
Okay. All right, and then this one, that's amazing. And then I'll ask you this: who has the weirder or more surprising post-playing career? Brad Lidge is an archaeologist, or Joe Blanton as a sommelier.
Who has a weirder one?
Who is more strange? You would not have predicted these two things for these two guys. Is it Brad?
I would have predicted both. Lidge talked about being an archaeologist when he was playing. He had books this thick in his locker about archaeology. I wanted to buy him an Indiana Jones hat one time. We saw it on the road somewhere. And then Joe was talking about in 2009. He was talking about the vineyards he'd bought, and he wanted to do wine. I'm like, so yeah, the one that got me the most is Brett being a singer.
Oh yeah, okay,
yeah,
sure.
That's the one I didn't know he could sing. He never sang. He never sang in the clubhouse. He didn't no interest. And all of a sudden I get a message from one of the kids on my high school team in Florida when I'm coaching down there. And they're like, Coach, you got to hear this song. It's your teammate, Brett Myers. I'm like, huh?
Rocking a little backwoods rebel there, huh?
Yeah, backwoods rebel. I mean, what the heck? So yeah, the other two I would have actually guessed because that's what Lidge wanted to do. He's an interesting person, man, very smart man. And Joe talked about buying wine at wineries and things like that. So him being, I wouldn't doubt that at all. But Myers being a singer.
Well, I will say this. I whenever I interview Brad Lidge, which is few and far between, I've yet to get him on this show, but when I have interviewed him, I always tell the booker, just tell him it's the guy that's going to ask him about being an archaeologist, because I'm a nerd. I love history. I like sports and history. And like I asked him about excavating the Colosseum in Rome, and he goes, no, I don't think they need any help with that. That's almost done. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. Never mind. But yeah, he's the best. And you, sir, are the best, Scott. I really appreciate you coming on. Really enjoyed the conversation. And this is a new Farzy Show interview record.
When it gets to 47, it'll be the best. Because you see, we're not going to 51 with my brother because I got to go pee.
You got to go.
We're at 57 in 6 seconds. We're good to go. Yeah. That's just an omen right there, right?
Right. It totally is.
Yeah,
absolutely. This is amazing. This is a record. Folks. I'm gonna have to go take a nap after this. I
gotta go to baseball practice and then
a marathon. Okay, there you go. Scott, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you, man.
My pleasure, man. Nice talking to you.